So, my guest on the show today is therapist Jennifer Dunkle. She is a certified Gottman marriage counselor, which means that she specializes in couples counseling. And she is also a member of the Financial Therapy Association, and she specializes in financial therapy. So, I'm so excited to talk with you about all things related to money today, Jennifer,
Okay.
particularly when it comes to personal growth and helping our listeners here develop a healthy, happy relationship with money, both as individuals, but also as a couple and as a family. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, okay, so to begin this, could you just for a moment talk a little bit about the art and science of financial therapy, because this is a fairly new thing in our shared profession as like a specialty. Can you talk a little bit about just what is involved in financial therapy that's a little bit different from
Well, yes. So basically, financial therapy is about examining the emotional underpinnings and reasons for why we make the money decisions that we do.
mm-hmm,
Um, and it came out of studies that started, back in the late let's say 1980s, 1990s, became more talk about behavioral economics.
mm,
And economists,
sounds serious.
yeah, economists, they used to think that human beings were rational and made rational money decisions. And then the research really was showing, no, we don't always make rational money decisions. And then the Financial Therapy Association started about a little over a decade ago
Mm-hmm.
to kind of continue that and really try to help work on helping people have a better relationship with money.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's very interesting. And I just love it that there's recognition that money is actually not rational. And I
Yeah.
think that that is such a helpful just message right there, because I think so much of what we see and hear and learn about with regards to being good with money and financial management, it's like, do this sensible thing and you will prosper. But in reality, so many people struggle to do what I think they rationally know what they should do, which is,
Yes.
save more than you spend, like live within your means,
Mhm.
those kinds of things. And so your specialty is really kind of going into what are those emotional attachments with regards to money? What are the
Yes.
mindsets that maybe you're holding around
Mhm.
money? So
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, and then there's a book, for example,
Mm-hmm.
written by some authors, Ted Klontz, Brad Klontz, and Rick Collar.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Wired for Wealth. Change
Mm.
the money. Let's see, let me get the exact title. Change the money mindsets that keep you trapped and unleash your wealth potential. And in there, they talk about money scripts. And basically, money scripts are sort of unconscious beliefs that we have about money that are, kind of running things behind the scene in our brain. And they usually stem from experiences in childhood, adolescence, younger adult years. So we have these beliefs about money. For example, a belief could be money is bad, or I deserve to spend money, or I don't deserve to spend money. And so these are like little soldiers behind the scenes pulling the strings in our brain and influencing us when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Um, so um, So I think that's where a lot of these issues come from, is because we have those beliefs that we're not even really fully aware of.
Yeah, we talk about that on the podcast sometimes, how so much of personal growth is really step one is that self-awareness. We have
Mhm.
these beliefs and judgments and even needs that we're really not entirely aware of. And so you're talking about the fact that we all have these messages, internal scripts about money and our relation to it that really impact our behaviors and then the results that you get with money.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Well, and that's good because really, like, just as we're talking about this, I'm sitting with this um thought that money is really such an abstract thing. I mean, money is just a thing that we've all agreed has value, but
Hmm.
it really is like whatever people believe that it is in a way that
Yes.
is different from other things that we have in our lives. It's not like an object or a experience. It's like this intangible thing that we create in ourselves.
Yes, and I
Mhm.
think I think money, and many people have said this, that money really represents so much.
Mm,
It represents power, control, love, and that's why it has such power in our lives, is because of what it represents.
yeah.
It's not just the money itself,
Hmm.
the dollars, the cents, but it's what it represents to us.
Yeah. I have so many questions for you, and so we'll go through those. But is it okay if I ask? I'm always so curious. I think that part of the reason I do what I do and why I even got into this profession is because I'm like so curious about people. How did you get into this as a specialty?
Yes, that
Is it
is.
okay to ask?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. That's an interesting journey that I had. So I started off an undergrad degree in psychology. Later in life, I got my first master's in consumer science, and I was drawn to that because of my interest in personal finance
Hmm.
issues. And already I was reading lots of books about um, personal finance and behavioral economics, and finding it really fascinating. And then, but meanwhile, my main career, I actually worked in the airline and travel industry for a number of years. Then later, I went back and got another master's degree in consumer science. I mean, excuse me, in community counseling,
Hmm.
and became a therapist. And when I it came time to actually open a private practice, I for many years I actually worked at a psychiatric hospital.
Ooh, tough
Eh,
crowd.
What?
Tough crowd.
Yeah, never a dull moment there.
Mm.
Then when I wanted to start a private practice, I thought, well, if I could do it with, financial therapy, that would really interest me. And so I got into it really for that reason. And then quickly realized that couples have so many issues with money that I better get some more training on working with couples. And that's what started me on the track of becoming a certified Gottman Method couples therapist.
May I just say, I am so glad from as a professional kind of tried to be standard bearer that you did that, because I don't know about you. I see so many like therapists who are individually trained. They have like a community mental health background and they're like, sure, I'll work with couples. And they do
Mhm.
not have the training to do so. And it just makes a
Yeah.
mess. So the fact that you got certified in an evidence-based form of being helpful to couples means so much to me. And just thank you for being ethical in that regard.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank
That's like a thing for me. Yeah.
you. Mhm. Mhm.
Anyway. So then you work, so financial therapy for individuals, but then also financial therapy for couples. And so let's
Yes.
kind of take these one at a time. So I
Okay.
mean, like, as individuals, we all have our mindsets, emotional things related to money or baggage, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Um, what would you say would be some of like what you see as examples of what it looks like in practice when someone has a generally healthy, helpful relationship and mindset towards money versus maybe someone who hasn't done that kind of work and has unhelpful beliefs or emotional triggers related to money. Like, can you just sort of paint us a picture of what those two things can look like?
Well, for me, when somebody has a healthy relationship with money, it means that they're running the show.
Mm,
Like they're controlling the money, not money controlling them. So they are being thoughtful about how do I want to spend my money in the next 3 months. Maybe they're doing some forward planning where they're like I personally use an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm figuring out, okay, when the money, this is the money coming in, this is the money that wants to go out. I mean, needs to go out for
mhm,
bills, and this is what I want to spend my discretionary
mhm.
income on. And it's like a forward looking plan. And so it's not that the people are being sort of impulsively drawn to different expenditures and feeling like they're not in charge of it.
Yeah, like my Amazon buy now button rules me,
Yeah.
like that kind of
Mhm.
feeling. Not that I know anything about that, but
Mhm.
but so to have that kind of thoughtful, intentional approach to
Yeah.
money as opposed to um, f- feeling kind of reactionary, impulsive.
Yes.
Is that what you would say messes people up the most that you see that you work with as a impulsive kind of approach towards money, or are there different things?
Well, sort of the more reactionary, impulsive, and or just reactionary, feeling like, I had to make this purchase, but it hadn't really been thought out. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really part of spending plan. Another thing I would say about that is that uh, some so I think some of the books out there make it hard for people because they talk about the importance of keeping track of every penny you've ever spent.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people just get bored. Like, that's too onerous. They don't want to do that. So the way I prefer to think of it is you plan how you want to spend your money. And if you're kind of sticking with your plan, then you don't need to worry so much about what you already spent it on.
Mm-hmm.
You're more concerned with how do I want to spend my money in the coming months.
Got it.
And then it's, because I think we have to make it easy for people and not make it a hard thing. And
Mm-hmm.
people just get turned off if they think they have to, keep track of every penny they've ever
Yeah.
spent.
Yeah. No, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But another thing that's coming up for me as we're talking, when you described that kind of like, that the air quote healthy approach to money as being like intentional and sort of planning and thinking into the future, one thing that did come up for me is that sort of characteristic or ability, there's like a personality type that goes along with that. I'm thinking of like Myers-Briggs
Mhm.
personality types right now, and how there is the J type, which we could go into the details here, but J's tend to be planners, future thinkers, whereas P's are more kind of in the moment,
Mhm.
tend to not be planning things very carefully, and can also have very happy lives. But do you see that, like, when you work with people who tend to be a little bit more in the moment or resistant to planning, like, is that something that needs to change in order for them to be better with their money? Or have you seen people who are able to kind of stay in the moment and be in the present, and also be successful, in determining where they want their money to go and sort of feeling in control over it? Or is it really related to that planning piece?
Well, I think we all have different personalities,
Hmm.
different styles, and I think it can work for different personality types. I think that just on a if you don't want to be such a planner, um, on a very basic level, spend less than you bring in.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do real extensive planning, that alone, spend less than your income, that will move you towards success.
Yeah.
Save, you know, save, and then everybody always says, pay yourself first. And you really do need to do that. You can't just at the end of the month say, well, I have $20 left, I'll save that. You really want to make it a line item. So spend less than you earn and save some of your income. And if that's all the planning you can do, that will still move you along the road toward financial health.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, just skim it right off the top. And I know I've talked to people who have had a lot of success with just setting things up that happen automatically, so that
Mhm.
they're just magic elves behind the scenes putting money into the right accounts, and it just kind
Yes.
of happens. And it certainly does require some forethought, but it's not like that super active, like staying on top of things month by month, and then people just have what there is left over, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's very true. Yeah, the more you can make it easy for yourself and automate it, that's great.
Okay. Well, and there are, lots of strategies and apps for the how-tos and nuts and bolts of money. But what I'm really interested in talking with you more about are some of those deeper kinds of emotional things, or even ways of thinking about money that people might not be aware of, because that's really useful. I mean,
Mhm.
like, so what would you say are some of the most common kinds of internal things you um, help people work through? And when you do that work, things change for them in terms of their
Mhm.
sense of empowerment with regards to finances.
Well, yeah, I think that goes back to the money scripts that I talked about earlier. And there's a number of exercises that these authors have developed, money beliefs, money dialogue, money history. So, I try to work with people to help them identify what some of their main money beliefs are. And then we look at their history. Well, what happened when you were growing up, and what happened when you were a young adult, and how has that influenced you on your money journey? That people, once they get insight into their money beliefs, it helps them move along the road toward making some different choices that might be healthier for them.
Got it. But I mean, what would you say would be, like, maybe the top one or two? I mean, have you noticed kind of patterns in your clients around, like, some of the most common limiting beliefs, or sort of typical life experiences that you see people have? That I'm thinking of things that maybe our listeners would be able to relate to.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, for example, let's say somebody had the money belief that um, money is unimportant. Then they might really be resistant to even thinking about money and planning their money. Um, or if they think um, I don't deserve to spend money, then they might be, again, like having trouble even spending money in a way that's enjoyable to them or enjoyable for their family. Like, or I do deserve to spend money. So a lot of times people will spend money to try to make themselves feel better, like they're going through a hard time. Maybe they just lost their job, or their, you know, boyfriend broke up with them, or their girlfriend broke up with them, so people will try to use money to stand in for helping them feel better about their life. And then they realize it's kind of empty, because it doesn't really help them feel better for very long. So things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That it could be a stand-in for what people really need, which is like a way of nurturing themselves and like self-comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, have you ever worked with people who maybe by objective standards, when we look at them, are very air quote good with money, meaning that they really plan things out. They are objectively wealthy. They're meeting their financial goals, but at the expense of relationships. And
Oh, definitely.
talk a little bit more about
I,
that.
I see that with couples,
Hmm.
with couples where, for example, the husband may have a very good income, and yet he's very and saving a lot, putting a lot into a 401k, and yet he's very, for example, he could be very controlling
Mm.
money and not willing to share uh, with his spouse. So it is, yeah, people would say, oh, wow, he's earning a great income, he's doing really well, and yet his relationship is falling apart because there's not a sense of, being a team when it comes
Yeah.
to money.
Yeah, yeah. And then, and like, because we were talking a little bit about how on that one end of the spectrum, certainly to be like really impulsive and reactionary and like, the financial equivalent of emotional eating, where we're using money to make ourselves feel better, is not ideal. But on the other hand, that like stinginess is a
Mhm.
thing, and being frugal to the point where it's feeling hurtful to other people, or
Yes. Yes.
like you're prioritizing money over your time with other people, or doing pleasurable things with other people.
Mm.
That can be impactful as well, even if you have a lot of money in the bank.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. So, I mean, I think people can have healthy attitudes and be doing well with money at what looks like a lower, salary and standard of living, and then have a higher salary and standard of living and actually have more money problems
Yeah.
because of the way it's affecting relationships
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and themselves too.
Yeah. Well, like, how do you see it impacting themselves?
Well, like, for example, they may have quite a bit of money, quite a bit of wealth, but they can't allow themselves to enjoy it.
Hmm.
Sometimes you hear extreme stories about people who lived super frugal lives, and then when they die, people find out they had $6 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a way it could impact themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard the term, and I can't remember where I heard this at one point, but the term like financial anorexia is coming to mind.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
for
I think
sure.
that's a term. Yeah, almost that like controlling things so tightly
Mhm.
that they can't enjoy or be generous. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
two sides of the same coin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. How would you, if somebody's listening to this right now and being like, "Yep, that's me," what would your thoughts be for them to kind of like, as opposed to getting more tightly in control, kind of like loosen their grip a little bit.
Uh, well, yeah, and see, this can come from the need for safety,
Ah.
because people who tend to hold on to their money tightly like that is because money is providing them a sense of safety. So
Mm-hmm.
the thought of spending money then is reducing that sense of safety.
Increasing
And
anxiety, I would think.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
increasing anxiety. So, they may want to, talk to somebody about that, like to help them work through these feelings and realize, well, I probably can still be safe, but loosen up a little bit with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. So some of that reality testing and really getting support for that anxiety, because it's
Yeah,
hard. It's hard
yeah,
to change.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and another thing, and I think we're talking now in early January, and
Mhm.
I think it's common that a lot of people around the new year, like that's one of the biggest resolutions or kind of goals for themselves, is to get better with money. And that can take a lot of forms. Sometimes it is increasing their income so they have, more money coming in. And sometimes it's doing things differently with the money they have. So they're conserving their resources differently or developing a healthier relationship with money. But what would you say to maybe the former, if there's somebody listening to this whose goal for themselves is really to be in a position, like maybe with regards to their career, where they are earning more. And we're certainly not talking about job stuff. I mean, we could talk to career people about that. But I guess what I'm wondering to hear your take on is, have you seen or worked with people who don't earn as much as they probably could because of some of these like deeper seated, possibly subconscious money mindsets, like that impact the way that they show up in their career, what they ask for, maybe their feelings of self-worth or deservingness. Have you seen any of that in your practice?
Yes, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have worked with people who are basically under earning and don't actually see options for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that it's probably there's some relationship with their self-worth and their self-esteem that it's getting in the way of them really kind of moving forward in a career. Or
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, they might have the belief, well, money is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe that's something that happened in their childhood, that they associate money with badness, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to earn more money because that means money is bad.
Yeah, and that I'm bad. Well, and I think that we do have some of that. I mean, in our like right now, I'm thinking of The Simpsons, the cartoon with like Mr. Burns, and we have this sort of caricature in our culture of that very wealthy people have been underhanded or abused other people, or maybe don't value other humans as much as they do money. Like there's some of that narrative, I think, those stereotypes in our culture.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, and so perhaps people being like, if I am actually interested in accumulating money, what does that mean about me? And can kind of be a crisis there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think it's really fascinating, the
Mm-hmm.
beliefs we have about money
Yeah.
and where they come from and how they're impacting us.
Yeah.
And I do think that the more awareness we all have about it, then it helps us to, you know, make some changes and have a healthier relationship with money.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, because there's so many different facets of this. I mean, so many. Because, like, as right when we were talking about the person who's maybe like undervaluing themselves and maybe sort of holding back from asking for more because of emotional things. I have also encountered people who have usually younger people, overly optimistic expectations of what they should be earning or what their time is really worth given this stage in their career.
Mhm.
And they can sometimes, I think, run into issues when they have unrealistic expectations for what they should be paid, basically,
Mhm.
that can really limit them from taking jobs or doing things that help them develop those skills and that like professional experience one step at a time. And so
Mhm.
that's like they almost need to like go in the other direction, kind of come back down and be like, no, you got to earn it, like
Yeah.
that place too. But
Yeah.
again, that takes so much like self-awareness. So then, I mean, again, for somebody listening, like, are there general, like basic sorts of go-to exercises that you frequently use with your clients for uncovering those kinds of self-awareness that it sounds like is always the first step in making change? Are there specific activities, or is it really just something that you're uncovering through what we do, which is asking powerful questions and sitting with people and helping them tell their stories? Can people do it on their own, do you think?
I think there's a lot of books that are
Mm-hmm.
really helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, people might want to read the book Wired for Wealth. That's a good one. Change the money mindsets that
Mm-hmm.
trapped and unleash your wealth potential. Another one I really like, just sort of again, because I don't really care for the books that are more about how much did you spend on lattes, too much. I but one that I do like is The Joy of Financial Security by Donna Saigan.
Mm-hmm.
And then um, yeah, I do think that people can start to develop awareness by reading some of these books
Yeah.
and doing some of the exercises that can help them. But it also can be helpful to go to a financial therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I'll tell you about the financial therapy field, it's an interesting mix of people who are a part of that organization. So some of us are therapists, such as myself. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And then some people are actually coming at it from being like a certified financial planner.
Mm-hmm.
So the financial planning field, and then there's a number of academics in the organization that are doing a lot of research on financial therapy. So
Oh,
we're a good mix of different types of professionals.
awesome. Well, and I'm going to impose on you to forward me some of those academic researchy type articles that you come across because I am a nerd. I will inhale all of it. I love learning about just the research. I think it's so useful, especially in our profession, because there are so many charismatic people with very strong opinions about what is right and good. And I love it when there's like the research to back it up because that
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me is just like trustworthy, but that's interesting to hear about the field. And I have to say, I am so excited. So you're going to be coming to Growing Self to give a training on
Uh-huh.
financial therapy to my
Yes,
colleagues here at Growing Self. And
yes.
we're so excited for that.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Well, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about in that training that I also like to talk with you about today. So getting on the same page around finances is often a really big deal for couples. It can either be a huge strength in a relationship if couples are very strongly aligned around their values. But, in my experience, even couples that have a lot of alignment, like the there are also always differences. I mean, we're not marrying our clone, right? And so even if you're sort of generally going in the same direction with money, there's usually a different perspectives or values or hopes or goals. And sometimes those differences can also be very dramatic in couples and a source
Mhm.
of so much pain and
Yeah.
conflict in a
Mhm.
relationship.
Yes.
And it sounds like you have a lot of experience in working with couples around
Yes,
that.
for sure. And
Yeah.
it's ironic that the reason I went into couples therapy
Mm-hmm.
is because I was becoming a financial therapist, and I knew that a lot of the clients would be uh, couples, and I thought I better learn more about couples.
Yeah.
And that became quite a journey in itself to get certified as a Gottman Method couples therapist. But yes, I mean, I love that method because
Mm-hmm.
it really gives some structure to the work with couples. For example, on the topic of money, there's an exercise we do. It's called Dreams Within Conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, yes, the conflict is around money. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an exercise where the couples take turns being the speaker and the listener and really talking about the dreams that they have that are underlying the conflict that's bubbling up, which
Mm-hmm.
and often is money related.
Yeah.
So it gives a good structure for being able to talk through these issues and
Mm-hmm.
through those dreams. And also another one is the art of compromise. So helping couples, you know, identify, well, what are they flexible about on the topic, and what are they really inflexible about,
Mm-hmm.
their core needs,
Yeah.
helping them work toward a compromise by using that. But yes, I see I mean, I would venture to say that probably at least 80% of my couples, there's some money issues going
Oh
on.
yeah. No, I bet. Well, and can I just say I love the interventions that you're describing because what those I think are really doing is what to me is so fundamentally important in any couple's work, but especially around this kind of thing is really helping two people understand each other better and develop empathy for each other's perspective because
Yeah.
I think when it comes to money it's very easy for people to get polarized and also very moralistic about it, isn't it? Like my way of handling and thinking about money is correct and
Yeah.
your way is wrong. And
Yeah.
so to really like move past that and cultivate that understanding of why my partner feels the way they do about money and where
Yeah.
does that come from and
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
And it comes from the fact that, two people, they have very different values, different
Yeah.
personalities. They grew up in different families. They've had different earlier life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have someone who, um, is really a saver and values money, and then you have someone who's more of a spender, more
Mm-hmm.
joy living today, that's going to be there's going to be some fireworks there.
Yeah, well, and that's that like this typical split, isn't it? There's a saver and a spender. And I have also seen that even and again in like two people who are objectively probably spenders will still also have differences between them. One of them is more of a saver and the other one is more of a spender. So like how do you help no, first of all, let me back up. What kinds of things do you see happening in a relationship, either related to money or even just emotionally, when couples are in that dynamic? One is a saver, one is a spender, one is feeling like, their partner is completely impulsive and out of control and irresponsible, and the spender is probably feeling like their partner is a killjoy control freak who
Mhm.
just, is trying to like oppress them. So like what do you see happening with these couples that maybe even like spreads beyond the immediate conflict around finances?
What do you mean exactly?
Like do you see it impact other areas of a
Oh, for
relationship
sure.
when finances are out of alignment? Mm-hmm.
Right. So anytime, I guess I would say in Gottman method, the basic goal is we're trying to help people have better conversations
Yeah.
about difficult issues.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what it is, like today it might be a money thing, tomorrow it might be how to discipline the kids, so our
Yeah.
goal is to help people learn how to have better conversations. And so I think when there's big sources of conflict happening that aren't being handled very well, it does seep out very much into the rest of the relationship.
Yeah.
It seeps into the friendship system, it affects trust, it
Mm-hmm.
affects commitment. So that's why it is so important to help couples learn how to have better discussions, better dialogue um, about money
Mm-hmm.
and other sources of conflict.
Yeah, definitely. That's always critical to achieving that understanding.
Mhm.
And then, for somebody maybe listening to this who can relate on either side, um, let me back up a little bit. And I'm sure you see this in your practice too, but a lot of times, well, most of the time, I think when couples show up for counseling here at Growing Self, both partners are pretty sure they're right and their partner is wrong. And, so like that's oftentimes the position that couples start from, which is
Mhm.
completely understandable because all have really is our subjective experience and our understanding of why things are the way they are. And so I think a lot of times people looking for relationship advice kind of come from the angle of, so how do I get my partner to be different, right? With regards to money. And I have certainly been in that position in my own marriage. Like I totally get it. Um, and I have found over the years that you probably have too, that it's generally more useful to kind of come back into a place of what can I do differently in my relationship to move closer to the center on my side, because
Yeah.
I only have control over me. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and and I think what we see systemically in relationships is that when one person takes that responsibility and takes that initiative to change things on their end to come closer to the center, it often results in the other partner kind of coming closer to the center as well. Like it reduces that polarization where people,
Yeah.
have more extreme perspectives. And so with that in mind, if there is, say, a saver listening to this right now who's like, the biggest problem in our relationship is the fact that my husband spends this money and won't budget with me and thinks it's a great idea to buy a $900 BMX bike instead of putting money into a retirement, whatever it is. So what would you say to that saver person that could help them kind of come towards their partner in terms of like where they might need to shift to have a better relationship with their spouse?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more that I think it's very important in couples that both people
Mm-hmm.
willing to look at themselves and how they're contributing to the
Yeah.
issues in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. And as far as moving toward compromise, that exercise I mentioned, the art of compromise, can be very helpful with couples, so they can each identify, hey, here's what I'm really just not flexible about. It'd be like cutting off my arm if I had to
Mm-hmm.
give this up. And then here's some areas of more flexibility. And I think, at a basic level, it often comes down to people want to have a sense of fairness,
Mm-hmm.
their partner. And people can develop different systems that work for them. But one that I often recommend with couples is that you figure out, first of all, what is the maximum amount that either of us are going to ever spend without consulting the other? So you come up with a dollar figure that you know neither of you are going to violate that and spend
Mm-hmm.
more than this amount without there being a consultation, so that you don't have those big surprises,
Mm-hmm.
right? And maybe it would totally depend on your budget and your values, but it could be $100, $200, $500, whatever. You come up with what's, um, fair in your family. And then the other thing that I think can really help is, you figure out, okay, here's our fixed line items in our budget, our mortgage or our car insurance or whatever. So you take care of all that. You figure out how much are we actually going to save per month and in what categories. And then you figure out your discretionary income. But I like to encourage couples to actually have there be an allowance for each partner that they can totally spend
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want, and the other person doesn't get to comment on it,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
get to be critical of it. So again, that's totally going to depend on your income and your values, but you make sure that both people have the same amount of money that they can do with what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if one of them saves their discretionary money for 3 months and wants to get an expensive bike, they can, because that was a part of their discretionary money that was
Yeah.
marked for them.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing you say, so for a saver, it's kind of wrapping your head around the idea that in order to have a good relationship with this person, they are going to need some discretionary income that is probably more than you think it should be. And
Mhm.
that's like hands off, that you need to maybe release some of that control and
Mhm.
understand that maybe your partner has things that are important to them that they might like to buy with their money that you would not do that. And so to kind of step back.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
does need to be fair so that
Yeah.
the saver also has the
Mhm.
same amount of discretionary
Of
money that
course.
they can do with what they want. Maybe they will decide to save it, but
Yeah.
each person has the same amount.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm hearing on maybe the spender side of it, like for maybe somebody in that position in a relationship. I mean, what you're saying is just like wrapping your head around the fact that there's going to be a spreadsheet where,
Mhm.
where you guys are talking about this is how much money and this is what it's going to be used for, and having conversations and agreements about what you're going to be doing with that money in advance. Because I think a lot of people with a spending mindset, like that in itself is not something that they would ever think of, much less do. And so that idea is like to have a good relationship with this person
Mhm.
is that this needs to be a very overt kind of conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And that fairness is the
Yeah.
overall goal.
Totally.
Both people have a sense of fairness about
Yeah.
it.
Now, this is also making me think of another situation. I'm sure this has probably come up in your practice, but you know, financial infidelity is a
Mhm.
thing. And what we've also seen, it's like in this dynamic saver versus spender, where a saver is holds so tightly to the reins, perhaps, that what you see sometimes is spenders can open up credit cards that
Mhm.
their partner doesn't know about and sort of have this private financial life that they almost feel like they need to keep hidden so
Yeah.
that their micromanagey saver partners paws don't get on it, right?
Mhm.
But it always comes to light sooner or later. And what we've seen is like one partner can run up a ton of debt, and
Yeah.
if you're married, it's kind of like your problem too, if your partner has all that debt.
Mhm.
And there can be lying and deception and concealment that can feel emotionally like as serious as if someone was having a sexual or emotional affair with another person. So
Yes.
this is like a real trauma in a relationship. I'm wondering if you've encountered this in your practice, and what you see as being the path to healing? And I know that this is complex and like a long, healing process, but um, generally speaking.
Yes, no, I definitely see that, and it is a really big problem. So, and it's the main reason I think in Gottman terms is because it's so damaging to the trust
Oh yeah.
in a relationship, and trust is really key in having a healthy and happy relationship.
Hmm.
You want to be able to trust your partner and know that they have your back.
Yeah.
And I think it comes about because there haven't been good, successful dialogues about the differences
Hmm.
between each partner. And so the person doing the financial infidelity, they may justify it in their mind. They may feel like, I don't have any option. This is what I have to do in order to have any control over.
Hmm.
So I think it's really crucial to go to um, therapy at that point
Oh yeah.
to talk all this out and rebuild the trust between
Hmm.
partners. Um, and yes, it is a trauma. It's definitely a trauma to the betrayed partner, you know, and with affairs, that of all types, it's like a PTSD type
Oh yeah, for
in,
sure.
in the partner, and I think that could apply too upon discovering that your spouse has run up $50,000 in credit card debt or
Hmm.
that. So I think that is definitely a marital crisis that warrants professional therapy to
Yeah.
try to work through that. Um, and even I'll just bring up, you know, not as bad as financial infidelity, but also I see a lot of what I would call financial abuse.
Financial abuse.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Well, that's where just, somebody is so controlling with the money that it's abusive in the sense that almost like emotional abuse can be.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's really abusive. It's for example, it could be controlling all the money and not letting your partner even know where all the money is, what
Hmm.
accounts are, just being super controlling with all the money. I would call that of financial abuse because it's not treating your partner like an equal to you,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's not being a team. It's not successfully talking about the issues between you in a healthy, straightforward way. It can be really withholding
Yeah.
of 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 resources from your partner.
Yes, yes, and I could definitely like part of this power dynamic that is really disrespectful of the other person's needs and rights and feelings
Yeah.
as a co-equal adult in that relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And it can, at its extreme, I mean, it can, in some cases, it can be related to other types of abuse,
I was thinking the same thing. Yes.
but not necessarily. It's not necessarily tied to physical or sexual abuse. It can be, just in a seemingly normal family, but one partner is really shut out of the finances.
And this is probably a good moment for me to just mention a free online resource that I haven't brought up in a while. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up right here while we're talking, Jennifer, so that I get the URL correct. We don't often go deeply into you know darker places, but relationship abuse is a real thing. Domestic violence is a real thing. And there is a really important uh, resource. It is free, it is national. It's called the Hotline.org. It's a website. You can call, text, email, and contact a trained domestic violence counselor immediately and for free, and they will have tons of resources to help you escape and plan, make a safe plan to protect yourself and your children. So I just wanted to mention that it's the hotline.org.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good, great,
yeah,
great.
just public service announcement to our listeners here. But yeah, so there can be a lot of different power dynamics, large and small. I mean, I think in sort of garden variety couples conflict related to money, there are also power dynamics that we need to be lifting out into the light. And you said something so important, which is that if that is going on, it's really important to get professional help
Mm,
for your relationship, because I think um, oftentimes couples who try to find their way without that support oftentimes wind up becoming more polarized. It turns
yeah.
into an argument about why I'm right and why you're wrong. That's
Mhm.
not that productive. And
Yeah.
so to reach out and start having those kinds of conversations that can help the two of you gain that understanding of each other and build those bridges back to the center.
Yes, for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
wonderful. Well, Jennifer, this was so wonderful to speak with you about
Oh,
all
very nice to
things,
speak with you.
yeah, financial therapy. I really appreciate your spending the time with us today and for sharing so many really helpful tips for our listeners.
Okay. All right. Well, let me know if you have any other questions.
Will do. All right, Jennifer Dunkle, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.